tools you will require are wire strippers, wire cutters, needle nose pliers, 7/16 and 9/16 inch wrench, and a can of pure silicone spray. The SVS cable connector is comprised of 10 parts. From left to right, they are the cable nut, cable seal, knurl ring, cable body with O-ring, pin insulator, 2 male pins and 2 female pins. The first task is to solder the male and female pins to the cable ends. If only a 3-conductor cable is needed, just push the female pin into the correct unused position of the pin insulator. The 3 remaining pins can be crimped or soldered to the cable ends. We are going to solder them. Start by adding some solder into the solder cups of the remaining female and 2 male pins. Next, strip the end of the cable as per scale, in inches or in millimeters. Then tin the wire ends. They should look like this. Hold a pin to the wire end using your needle nose pliers. Heat the solder cup with your soldering iron, at the same time applying pressure to the end of the wire. As the solder remelts, the pin will slide down over the wire end to make a solid joint. This is how your cable end should appear when done. Next, we need to slip the connector parts onto the cable in the following order and direction. First comes the cable nut. Then spray a little silicone seal onto the wire to make it easier to slide the cable seal onto the cable. Make sure you place the cable seal onto the cable in the correct direction. The flat part of it will go against the cable nut. Slide the cable seal back and then push the cable nut over the cable seal. Next comes the knurl ring. Make sure the threaded parts is facing the pins. Then comes the cable body. Slide it over the cable. Push the parts together and tighten the cable body loosely. Next, align the pins into the pin insulator, making sure that the pins are in their correct position. Work the pins into the pin insulator by pushing and wiggling on the pins. You might need to use needle nose pliers, especially on the female pins, to help push them in place.
Now, the final step to assemble this, we're going to spray some silicone on the wire. And that's important, otherwise you'll be twisting everything, and that's not a good thing. Once you get over the silicone, you can feel it. It moves real easily. You just simply use any flat surface and make sure you push, click it in till it's obviously flush. It can't go anymore, and that's assembled. We only have to tighten it at this point. So we get out our wrenches, and our first wrench we put onto the body, and our next wrench we start simply tightening it. This is why the silicone is important, because tightening it this way, we're not twisting anything. We want to tighten it till it's good and snug. There we go. And nothing's twisted. You could tell by looking at the end that the pins aren't laying over sideways or twisted in any way. They're in the same position that they were. Now this connector is solidly on there. The silicone actually through the air just comes off, and in a matter of days this connector is very tight and difficult to even pull off. Although, again, if you grab it tight enough and pull hard enough, you can pull the cable right out of the connector, but that takes a lot of force to go do that. The beauty of this connector is the fact it can be reused. Anytime it can be disassembled the opposite way. You can unsolder the pins, so if the cable goes bad, cut it shorter, splice the cable, reuse the connector, the pins, everything can be reused. We don't recommend reusing the O-ring. We recommend you always replace the O-ring because that makes your final seal into the connector. So that's how you assemble our standard SVS connector. And at this point, they're extremely reliable. They are waterproof. We certify them waterproof to a depth of 300 feet, so about 150 psi, provided that this O-ring is of course good. And when you plug a connector like this into a camera, let me get a camera real quick to show you how to connect the connector. Alright, here's one of our standard cameras, a standard camera with lights built in. This would normally require a 4-wire to have controllable lights, but the connectors are interchangeable. You don't need to have a wrench. The idea is not to twist and tighten the connector. It just pushes in. Simply line up the pins. You can feel them line up, and you're pushing the connector in. Now the key to this is that O-ring that's on the side. If I push hard enough, there you go. That O-ring seals. That's the entire seal. So the only purpose of this knurl ring here is just to make sure that it doesn't back off, that O-ring. So you only need to hand tighten it. There's a wrench or tightening it anymore doesn't do any good. As long as the connector can't move in and out, that O-ring on the side is absolutely sealed. So this is a perfect connector. It can be vibrated, whatever, beaten around. It's not going to come loose. And like I say, the beauty of it is that you can replace this connector by using it over and over again, which is an advantage because cable eventually is always the weakest link and will eventually fail, usually right where it enters the connector itself. Some people will even put some heat shrink over the body and onto the cable, which helps stiffen it, and because what you're trying to not have happen is this constantly doing this. If that is what's always happening, then your cable is going to be breaking in this position, and you'll have to rebuild the connector onto a new part of the cable. So as long as you can eliminate that, then it's good to go and should give you a long, many years of worry-free operation. And having a camera like this, well, beat it around, do whatever you want. It's pretty much a forever product. So I hope that that gives you a quick lesson in how to build and construct our SVS connectors, or in this case the model number is an SCN4C. We do have a 5-pin connector as well for other special occasions, and that's about it.
Our SVS connector can be made from various materials for chemical resistance, corrosion resistance, or any other special needs. After all, harsh environments is our specialty.